Okay, we have John Livesay here, the Successful Pitch Podcast. John, how are you rocking the podcast these days?
Well, Jessica, I just am so excited because the way I rocked it was I was on Entrepreneur on Fire thanks to your introduction and support. And that was a goal of mine for a long, long time. And JLD, the host, is so great and so spontaneous. And to get him to actually laugh was an unexpected treat because I thought to myself, if we're having a good time, then the listeners will have a good time.
That was a great interview. I listened to it the day it came out. As I'm sure a ton of people did.
Thank you. He was so gracious. He put the link to my new book, The Successful Pitch, on there. He put the link to my book trailer, and of course he mentioned my own podcast. So it was a huge win to have been on that show and get all that promotion and get the response. He tweets the whole day that your episode airs, and it was just fantastic.
Well, that's a really good point about the tweeting. Can you tell me, because you have you're a totally rock the podcast star, John, because we've been booking you for I think 8 months, and you have an amazing podcast that you interview people on. I talked to Jason Swank a couple days ago, and he said, 20% of the work is the interview, 80% is the promotion. And you do a really interesting thing where you add a blog post to your website with you as a guest on other shows. So talk a little bit about how you're promoting your interviews.
Once I get interviewed, I have my website guy take the artwork from the host who interviewed me and put that up on a blog post. And so it's the host picture and the name of his or her podcast that people see on my blog post. And then I say I'm a guest. Then I tweet about it. Then I send an email out once a week of every show I've been on. I'm saying, if you want to learn the difference between an investor pitch versus a pitch for funding, click here to hear me on this person's podcast and the answers I give. Or if you want to hear my worst entrepreneur moment, click here to hear me on Entrepreneur on Fire. So it continues on and on and on, and I keep getting a lot of response from that. And of course, then if the host is kind enough to post tweets about me being a guest, I of course retweet that.
Right. And when did you start your podcast? How long ago?
It was a year and a half ago, April from the previous year. So,
and when did you start seeing the impact on your business? Because a lot of people ask that, when will I see results? Or I'll test it out for a month and see what happens,
Yes. I think to myself, that kind of I want instant results mindset is almost like dating, right? Imagine that you're going to go on a date somebody and say, you know what, if we don't get married in a month, I'm out of here, right?
Yeah.
But I have to say, for me, I was fortunate enough that the second guest I had, Jessica, Judy Robinette, started referring me clients right away, and was so happy that the people I was helping with their pitch were getting such great results in September. So she was my second guest in April of last year. By September, she said, let's start Crack the Funding Code together. So had it not been for me taking the leap of faith to start my own podcast, I would never have met Judy. We would never have had our business. I would never then have turned, 10 of my favorite episodes into a book. So it's all goes from...
Wow, it really changed your whole business or your life.
It did. Well, the investor, people would come to me and say, I definitely need help with a pitch to grab people's attention because I'm a tech person and I only know how to talk about how something works. And I keep saying that you need to grab the heartstrings so that investors open the purse string. And that's the benefit of being a storyteller. No matter what you're pitching, whether it's to get a job, get customers, get people to join your team, get funded, whatever it is, you need to become a master storyteller. And that's my passion. But then people started telling me, Jessica, I need introductions to investors. And I thought, I don't know how to do that. And then I just realized I need to figure it out. And so that was the whole intent of my podcast. I didn't have this big dream of getting to X millions of downloads so I could sell ads on it. In fact, I have an ad on my podcast for Crack the Funding Code, my business. Yeah. I run my own ad with a different voiceover for my own business because it's so targeted. And the network of investors that I have who share with me their criteria totally took off my business because they say to me, look, we're looking for good deals. If you have somebody who has a good pitch and you would invest in them, we'll take an introduction. So the investors are happy. The people who come to me saying I need a pitch and an introduction are happy. And I can literally on the phone show people my podcast guests and say, well, here's 4 people I would introduce you to once your pitch ready. So it really helps my business.
Wow, that's so awesome. And people are now watching this and they're in love with you. They want to interview you. They want to listen to your podcast. What what is your expertise? What do you talk about on podcasts, and what kinds of guests do you have on your podcast?
Sure. What I talk about as a guest, as you so kindly mentioned, is, Inc. magazine called me the pitch whisperer. And what that means is, much like a horse whisperer, which calms nervous horses down, everybody gets nervous when you get in front of a room to pitch for anything. And I help people get really confident. So if you want to have me on as a guest and learn some really key secrets about how to be more confident in any situation, then that's definitely a topic I can talk about. If you want to talk about how to craft a story so that people are engaged with you and remember you, I'm your expert guest on that. And of course, then if you want to talk about how to pitch and what investors are looking for, I'm great on that. And finally, if you're looking for the secrets to selling, because I won Salesperson of the Year when I was at Condé Nast, I know how to do that. So those are my real key areas. And the kinds of guests that I have on my podcast typically are people who are investors, whether they're an angel investor, a venture capitalist, but also I interview really successful entrepreneurs who've gotten funded, who tell me their journey. And then I have really great authors on there, like Judy Robinette, who's both an investor and an author. That's my ideal guest.
That's so great. And yeah, you helped me with one of my sales emails, and you just said, hey, I'm just gonna, I think you were like, well, you can ignore this if you want. And I was like, no, this is awesome. Like, you helped me with just, a couple of the lines. You actually showed me how to tweak them to make it more effective and more successful. So thank you for your help.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
please.
It's just amazing like how little changes can make a big difference in the sales process. So John, how can people find you online? Is it thesuccessfulpitch.com?
Yes, or just johnlivesay.com. It takes you all there, and the Successful Pitch takes you to, my podcast on iTunes, but on my website, johnlivesay.com. I'm Twitter, I'm John_Livesay. I post on my podcast on my LinkedIn profile. It's on YouTube, but basically just go to my website, johnlivesay.com.
Thank you. And friends, if you want to get booked as a guest expert, come check us out at interviewconnections.com, and we'll get you on all great shows, just like we've gotten John on a ton of great shows. Thanks, everyone.